This video is going to be a panoply of conversations all intertwined into one. We're talking to Canucks fans, we're talking to San Jose fans, and I guess we're talking to NHL fans as a whole, because last night we had ourselves a really magnificent milestone hit by one Erik Karlsson on the San Jose Sharks. You see, the Sharks ended up losing pretty badly to the Jets. The Jets are in a playoff hunt. They're kind of balls to the wall right now. They're trying to get every point they can get, and in their process of solidifying themselves in that postseason, they took out the Sharks with a pretty convincing score of 6-2. But the two San Jose goals were both scored by Erik Karlsson, and it was a pretty good game when you're considering that aspect of what happened, because Erik Karlsson, heading into yesterday's game against the Jets, was at 98 points on the season. With the two goals, he gets 100 on the year, and now, if you take a look at his 2023 point totals, Erik Karlsson went from 35 points in 50 games last year to 100 points in 80 games this year. He had more assists in this season's worth of play than he has had points in almost every season he has had in the NHL, spare two. There were two Ottawa Senators seasons where he had 78 points and one where he had 82 points. But every other season Erik Karlsson has had, he has had fewer points than he has had assists in this season alone. And he has a career high in goals. 25 on the year is pretty good for a San Jose Sharks defenseman. It's going to be weird seeing the Norris voting go down this year, because you almost never see the Norris actually get awarded to players on non-playoff teams, but Erik Karlsson is planning to challenge that this season because he is the number one point scorer amongst all defensemen. He's got like a 20-point lead or whatever on second place, who is Quinn Hughes, I'm pretty sure. Quinn has actually been on a pretty bad slump when it comes to scoring, although it's not for lack of talent, believe me. He's definitely still a very good player in his own right, it's just he hasn't been scoring. So yeah, that happens. But for Erik Karlsson, he has been scoring, and it's super noteworthy because if you take a look at NHL defenders who have had 100 points in a season, the list is not long. Here's a tweet from Sportsnet Stats: 100-point seasons amongst defensemen in NHL history. Bobby Orr did it 6 times, Paul Coffey did it 5 times, Potvin did it in 78-79, McInnes in 90-91, and Brian Leetch in 91-92. It's literally been 30 years since the last time we had seen a defenseman put up 100 points in a season, and Karlsson becomes just the 6th player to do so. And realistically, I mean, talking about players who have been significant in the development of defensemen in the past few years, Erik Karlsson is probably the guy that I think deserves this the most because of the amount of dominance he had in the 2010s and the late 2010s, pretty much, heading into this downward spiral that he had heading over to San Jose. He really did struggle after coming over and just going through a lot of the injury troubles that he did. Who knew that trading Brent Burns away would have been the ultimate catalyst for a revival season that puts Erik Karlsson back in the history books as one of the best offensive defensemen, of all time. After everything he has been through, he is back on top of the mountain, and it just feels right. No disrespect to Roman Josi last year, the guy who was close to 100, but he didn't get it. But this feels a lot more welcoming. This feels a lot more like the storybook ending that we were all expecting to see when it comes to defensemen hitting 100 points. 6th player in NHL history to do so. Erik Karlsson is literally up there with Coffey, Orr, Potvin, McInnes, and Leetch. But there's another record that was also broken with this Erik Karlsson 100-point year. You see, not only has this been the first season in 30 years where a defenseman has had 100 points, but it's also the first time in over a decade that a Swedish player has had 100 points. You see, the last time a Swede hit 100 was in 2010-2011, when Daniel Sedin was the only player in the National Hockey League to do so. In 82 games played, Daniel had 41 goals and 63 assists for 104 total points. As we had said, he was the only player to hit the mark, as Marty St. Louis, Corey Perry, Henrik Sedin, Stamkos, Iginla, and everybody else followed suit, and they all had only 90-ish points on their seasons. So for Daniel Sedin, he was at the top of the mountain all those years ago, and he was the last Swedish player to get 100 points in a season. This year, I kind of said it earlier on in it was a few videos ago, and I also said it on Twitter, but it was interesting to see heading into yesterday's action what would happen, because not only was Erik Karlsson at 98 points at the start of the day, but you also had another super Swede on the Vancouver Canucks that was at 99, Elias Pettersson. Now, Petey admittedly has been going through a very small, very mini scoring slump. He had been producing a lot of points, but there was a game where he didn't produce, and then heading into yesterday's game against LA, it was sort of a race between Pettersson and Karlsson, because they both had games going on at the same time who would get 100 points first. Pettersson ended up not scoring any points because the Canucks got shut out, and he remains at 99 points. And this is sort of the thing. The Canucks have another game later today. They're playing the Anaheim Ducks, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch it. Like, there's some stuff that I got to do at one of the other hockey leagues I'm a part of, but when it comes to Petey, this is interesting because the Canucks ended up getting shut out for the first time in God knows how long last night against the Kings. It wasn't really a game where they lacked opportunities. It was just kind of not their game. Miller couldn't score in a breakaway, and that sort of felt like the turning point. And I felt like, for me personally, the Canucks really lacked a lot of that oomph in their gameplay, which is sort of why I didn't want to make a video about last night's game in general. I was like, yeah, no, that was a boring game. Like, I am done. Sure, there were a lot of fights and physicality, but I don't know. Is that really something that I want to talk about when they lose 3-0? Pettersson's at 99 points. That's what everybody cares about here in this city. And it was sort of an interesting thought process to think, heading into last night's games in the NHL, who would get it first, Petey at 99 or Karlsson at 98? The winner, or the guy who does get it, will be the first Swede to get 100 points in over a decade, and the first one since Daniel Sedin, who was a Canuck too. Like, Pettersson has 2 more games to get 1 point, which is a lot better than JT Miller had last year, because JT was at 98 points heading into the final game of the season. He scored a goal, and then he missed a shot in overtime to get the 100 points. But either way, I feel like Canucks fans, I've said this a ton, but I feel like Canucks fans are still so traumatized by JT not getting 100 last year that I guess we're sort of biting our fingernails now, seeing Elias Pettersson be very close, seeing the Canucks get shut out. Knock on wood, things go well against the Anaheim Ducks and the Arizona Coyotes. I don't know where things are going to go from here, but either way, Pettersson is 1 away. Karlsson already hit the mark. Karlsson's got 2 games left, I'm pretty sure, so yeah, leave it to Karlsson to get that 100-point season and put it under his belt. Sure, of course, I'm not salty that the guy went out there and did the thing, because seeing more players get 100 points is amazing, especially in an NHL like this, where we're seeing them thrown left, right, and center. Everybody's got 100 points nowadays, but either way, EP40 is on pace to getting it. He's got 2 games left to do so, but if last night's performance is indicative of the quality of play the Canucks are going to exhibit the next little while, then I'm not gonna lie, I'm starting to get a bit worried, but it's just 1 point, right? The Canucks haven't scored a goal since the first period of that Calgary game 2 games ago, and that was shorthanded. That was also EP40, but it's been a while since then. Get some goals on the board, Vancouver. It'll do all of us well. Thoughts in the comment section below about Erik Karlsson hitting 100. Thoughts as well on Elias Pettersson being so close yet so far away. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.